evening, and welcome to Talkin' Baseball, the show in which we talk about baseball. This is episode 8, and we will call this Parks. I'm Pete Lincoln, it's my son Jason Smith, and joining us this evening is Debbie Lincoln, my wife, and his mom. And she'll explain to you what this show is going to be about.
Well, hello out there in Channel 9 land. What we're talking about today is being an active member of Red Sox Nation, where you actually follow the team around. And we have been doing that since 1989, when we decided we wanted to take our kids to see great cities of America and sort of on the side see a Red Sox game against the team that played there. So we first went to Chicago. We saw Wrigley Field and the old Comiskey Park. And then we traveled by train up to the beautiful downtown Milwaukee to see the Brewers. They were part of the AL then, so they did play the Red Sox. And we had a great time, and the next year we went to New York City, saw the Yankees and the Mets, and we had a great time, and that sort of evolved into our odyssey to see every single city that the Red Sox played in, because some of the parks have changed over time. We haven't seen them all, or we didn't see some of the old ones. But at any rate, we've traveled all over Canada and the United States, and today we'd like to kind of share with you some of our favorite experiences and some of our least favorite experiences that you might want to put at the bottom of your list when you're traveling to see the Red Sox.
You might notice we all have big grins this morning. Part of the reason for that is this is being taped on August 16th, one day after the Red Sox just scored 37 runs in 24 hours. Probably the highlight of the season, but at least for a day. We're thinking of moving to the AL West next year and playing Seattle exclusively.
Yeah,
For the Mariners all year will be all set.
nice park too.
Well, anyway, if you're planning to go on such a trip, here's things to consider. Get a hold of a 2016 schedule, which will be out probably in a month or so, and decide what series you might like to go see yourself, what time of season is best for you, or if you just have summers off. As teachers, we only had summers off to make our selections. And then decide whether you're going to drive to the parks, if they're a distance. We drove to Montreal and to Pittsburgh. All the rest of the parks we went to, we flew. You can also take games away tours out of Boston. They will set up the hotel access for you and buy you tickets and make accommodations via the plane or trains or however you're going to get there. Bus tours from New York are pretty common too. And then you need to consider the availability of tickets. Some parks like San Francisco say the tickets are at a premium. The Sox are playing this season. They're playing down in New York, playing the Mets, and the Mets are in first place. A lot of Boston people go down to New York. Those tickets are very, very hard to come by. If you're going to Tampa Bay, you can walk in the day of the game and get a ticket. You might consider how accessible the parks are to your accommodations, what the locale in the city is. Some are in prime locales and some not so. Find out what attractions the city has. We always would recommend you stay more than just to the ball games. If you can possibly stay 4 or 5 days, you get a chance to see what's in the environment that's worthwhile, from museums or attractions or things for kids to do. And then, of course, how nearby are the accommodations? Some parks have accommodations right next to the park. Others you're going to have to travel miles to get to the park, and that's extra expense and extra difficulty. So what we thought we would do for this show is each take a couple of parks and we liked, and so Jason, why don't you begin?
Well, we'll start off with trivia as always.
Oh, that's right.
Here's some
Okay.
ballpark trivia for you.
No Googling.
No Googling
No Googling.
again, but
No
there are
Googling.
2 questions for you to ponder. The first one is, other than Fenway and Wrigley, what is the oldest major league park? Pretty
Fenway and
straightforward.
Wrigley both were built before World War I.
Yeah.
And the next newest one was built after
After World War II.
during the Vietnam War.
Yes. Yes.
So what's the oldest current park other than the 2 antiques?
And the second question is, what current park has the largest seating capacity for baseball? Now, some of them are multi-use, or they might tweak a population for a concert, something like that. But for purely a baseball crowd, what park has the biggest population or biggest seating capacity?
The giant parks are no longer. Cleveland's Municipal Stadium had 80,000 seats, and for a little while the Dodgers played in Los Angeles Coliseum, which
So
had
sad.
100,000
Yeah.
seats. I'll give you a hint, the top seating capacity now is 56,000.
Which is pretty amazing when you think of all the Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, they used to have all the multi-use huge stadiums, those are all gone now.
That's right.
So,
So, what park has the highest attendance possibility, and what park is the oldest?
after
There's
Wrigley and
there's your
Fenway.
trivia for today.
So contemplate those while we tell you about some of the parks. So my first park that I'm going to talk about is something that maybe you've done before. A lot of Red Sox fans go here because of its location and its accessibility for tickets, is the Rogers Center in Toronto, formerly known as the Sky Dome when it first started out. It was opened in 1989, and at the time it was kind of a novelty because it was the first retractable roof stadium. And now those are quite common, but at the time that was a big deal, and it cost them about $300 million more than they thought it would to open this park with the retractable roof. And inflate that to Canada, it's probably twice that, whatever Canadian dollars turns into. It's also home to the, actually through this season, it's also home to the Toronto Argonauts of the CFL, making that and Oakland the only two stadiums that are actually both for baseball and football, but the Argonauts are actually gone next year, so Oakland will be the only one after this one. And it's very comfortable, it's very accessible. I know Toronto's doing well, they actually had some sellouts against the Yankees this weekend, but that's been very rare over the last 20 years. You know, 92 and 93, they were sort of at the top of the baseball world. They had back-to-back World Series, and the strike really took away a lot of the Canadian interest in the game. And so the Blue Jays have become a very easy ticket to get. You can walk up to the day of the game and get a ticket anywhere in the park. I know they have things called $2 Tuesdays. You can sit in the upper deck for $2, and they're great seats. They're great sight lines. There's really very, very few bad seats in the park, even though it's a dual baseball and football. They're great sight lines. All the seats face the right way. Very current amenities. Very spacious legroom, which for Fenway is a novelty. If you're used to sitting in the blue seats up in the grandstand, you appreciate that very, very much. And it's also very easy to stay in the area. There is a hotel right attached to the Rogers Center. It's very pricey. I know some of the players actually live there during the year, but there are also 2 or 3 very affordable hotels right in the area that are within 10-minute walking distance to the park. It's right on the water, so anything in the area is very easy to get to. The Rogers Center is across the street from the edges of Lake Ontario. There's a great tour that you can take. Actually, there are 2 tours. There's a water tour where they can take you onto Lake Ontario, and you can go out to visit the various islands on Lake Ontario, except for the one that has a nude beach. They don't take you to that one. Even if you pay extra, we tried to pay extra to go there. They wouldn't take us there. But you'll see on here, we're going to put a picture in of the Toronto skyline, which is just beautiful from the boat on Lake Ontario. And they also have, like London, double-decker bus tours, which are excellent. Sit on the top on a nice sunny day. Doesn't get humid there at all. It's a very clean city. We discovered the Purina Hall of Fame. It's actually a Hall of Fame about rescue animals. And it's mostly dogs, but 20 cats and also 1 horse. And they have pictures of all the dogs and the animals and what they did to help save people's lives. It was interesting. And we just stumbled on this walking around from the hotel. So that's the kind of thing you can look for when you're traveling. You don't, of course, hit the tourist parts, but there are also little places hidden in a lot of cities that you might just discover walking around, and it kind of gives you a feel for the local people too. It's not, because they're going to be at the dive bars and the restaurants, not at the touristy places. But there are a lot of other things to do. I mean, first off, if you're going to go to the park, and we recommend this for every park you go to, take a ballpark tour.
Absolutely.
They're great.
Absolutely.
They take you all around the parks. Depending on the place, you can go in clubhouses, you can go in dugouts, broadcast booths, you can go and sit in the seats in the park. And for the most part, the tour guides are very knowledgeable and very personable. They'll answer just about any question you have.
And pretty entertaining.
Oh, very entertaining. Yeah, you have to have a great personality to get the job. So that goes a long way too. I know when we were in the Sky Dome, because we were Red Sox fans, and it was at the time when Toronto was not selling well, and about half the stadium was Red Sox fans, actually, the weekend we were there. He took us way up to the upper deck where a few years ago Manny Ramirez hit the furthest home run in Skydome history. It was 501 feet measured. It looked a lot further than that, too. And it's way up in the upper deck. It's absurd how high it is. But because we were Sox fans, he took us up there to get a look at just how far he hit the home run.
Yankee fans never are taken there.
No, I know. But Toronto is a place that, well, it was interesting when we were there, the Yankees were just leaving and the Sox were coming in, and we saw Yankees fans checking out of our hotel as we were checking in. You know, it's a very popular stadium for fans of both teams. And around the city, there is so much stuff to do. The CN Tower is right next door, which if you look at the skyline, it's the big needle that sticks out right next to the Rogers Center. You can go up there, there's a restaurant up there, and it's open air, so you're looking above the city with the wind whipping in your face. And they also have a glass bottom for the upper deck, so you can actually sort of lie on the floor and look down at the city.
You can.
I did. I
did
did.
too.
Not me.
If you're scared of heights, don't go up there.
I
Nice touch.
actually thought you were going to mention the very cute ushers that they employ.
Oh, yes, they do.
You know, long-time visitors of Fenway Park know that most of the ushers there for a long time were 80-year-old retired Irishmen, chomping on a cigar, not paying much attention to you. They had sort of gotten their jobs through some sort of political pull. In Toronto, you have to be between 18 and 25 and rather attractive young woman. And they're very polite and cordial, but they're much more eye candy than Archie in the bleachers.
Yeah. And you know, one funny little side story about Skydome, I hope this isn't too bawdy for cable TV, but it was sort of notorious on Nesson for a while. The hotel is attached to the ballpark, and you can actually watch the game from certain hotel rooms within the park. And I guess there was one time where there was an amorous couple in one of the hotel rooms. And the Nesson camera crew discovered this, and Don and Jerry got very quiet watching the game.
They didn't draw the blinds.
They didn't draw the blinds. If you're going to do that, make sure you close the blinds. And so word sort of leaked out into that night and into the next day why things got very quiet in the booth. And the next day, they showed these Red Sox fans out in the hotel room with their feet up and a cooler open and sort of drinking away. And Jerry looks at him and says, if the worst we see tonight's a little bit of drinking, we'll be just fine.
You know, when you go on the boat tour, they pointed it out to you.
Yeah, now it's an attraction at the park. They show you, oh, there's the couple that was...
Go ahead, what's next up?
Well, one of my favorite parks is in Pittsburgh. It's called the PNC Park, and I wondered what that was. It's actually the 5th largest bank in the United States, PNC. Don't know what it stands for.
Interestingly, there's only 5 parks left out of the 30 that are named just for the team, like the Boston Red Sox Fenway Park or Yankee Stadium. 25 are either named for individuals or for corporations.
So, PNC, we actually went there in 2012. It was our last park. It just didn't stack up that the Red Sox played in Pittsburgh for years and years and years, and we kept looking at the schedule and waiting, and it finally happened in 2012. So off we went. So PNC Park was built in 2001, so it's relatively new, and it's actually the 5th location that the Pirates have ever been at. Its capacity is 38,500, so it's a little bigger than the Red Sox, not a whole ton. And outside, it's surrounded by statues. It's an absolutely beautiful park to walk around. It's also on the Allegheny River, so it's a very, very picturesque park. And inside, when you get inside, there's an exhibit of all the players from Pittsburgh who played in the Negro Leagues. So that's a wonderful exhibit. And it's great access to the park. It's a subway stop in Pittsburgh, but it's also the intersection of 2 major highways. And if you've ever watched a game on TV and you see the big yellow bridge in the background, well, that is turned into only pedestrian traffic for the games. So it's a great park to access. You can walk in from a whole bunch of different areas. And it's actually a great buy because it's the 4th cheapest ticket in the MLB. And it's a classic style, kind of based on Fenway and Wrigley and one of their older parks, Forbes Field. Pittsburgh itself is kind of a trip. It's a really interesting, neat city that you wouldn't expect. You've probably heard of it as the Steel City.
Right.
And kind of a downtrodden, kind of blue-collar place. And indeed, there are 300 steel companies that are still there. It's got a population of just over 300,000. But it's the confluence of the Ohio, Allegheny, and Monongahela rivers.
Very good.
Yeah,
Hence Three Rivers Stadium.
Three River Stadium
Yeah.
was one of the prior stadiums. And it's called also the City of Bridges. There are 446 bridges coming out of Pittsburgh, so it's beautiful everywhere you look. It's home to Carnegie Mellon and University of Pittsburgh, so there's tons of cultural stuff to do there and scholarly things to do there. There's also the Andy Warhol Museum, which is really fun.
Great.
If you have a little bit off-center taste in art, you will absolutely love it. Plan to spend a day there. And of course, Carnegie has wonderful museums of every possible kind. They have beautiful arboretums and libraries and things like that. And then they have what they call the Duquesne and Monongahela inclines. And we'll show you a picture of that. It's this sort of cable carry thing that sort of goes up the hill sideways to the very, very top of Pittsburgh, and you can see all around the rivers, and you can see the stadium. It's quite a trip, but you go up sort of backwards, so it's an interesting ride. And finally there, for culture, there's Wheatland, which was the home of President James Buchanan that you can visit. So there's a ton of stuff to do. You can also take a cruise on, I think it's the Allegheny, and you go right by the park and see all the beautiful homes and beautiful businesses in Pittsburgh. And so I would highly recommend it. Not a place that you would think of to go normally, but it's a cool trip. One problem with it that we had is everywhere we went, we collected car flags of each of the teams. And apparently, Pittsburgh is not really into baseball the way they are into football, so the only car flag we could find was a Steelers one. We were never able to get Pirates, but it's still a very cool place. So that's one of my top two.
And Pittsburgh is doing quite a bit better this year, so
Yeah.
maybe they'll get a flag this year.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Finally.
That would be great.
By car, especially traveling down through the center of Pennsylvania, you haven't done that. To go to Hershey and to go to the Amish country or drop down to Gettysburg, we made a whole Pennsylvania tour out of it. And it was not only educational, it was just really enjoyable. It's a beautiful state, very wooded state too. Okay, my first pick today is probably the easiest pick to make because by general consensus, this is the best park in the country, and that's AT&T Park in San Francisco. When Candlestick was there, that was not the best park in the country. Candlestick's claim to fame was that once during an all-star game, a pitcher was blown off the mound. Stu Miller was so small, a wind gust came up and blew him off the mound.
It would drop down to 30 degrees at night because the winds were so strong coming off the bay.
Well, they got in touch with some of the universities in California and redesigned the park, and it's a gorgeous place. The key about AT&T Park to me though is that it's situated right next to what they now call McCovey Cove. So right over the right field stands, there's water. It's nowhere near as big a cove as it appears to be on TV. It's not going out into the ocean at all. And when we first said it, I was a little surprised because it sort of looked like a little landing dock. But the fact that you can hit a ball into the ocean from the ballpark, it's just kind of exciting. It's been done, what's the facts here? It's been done, the Giants have hit 70 splashdowns, they call them. 35 of those were hit by Barry Bonds. Now, we went there in, what was the year we went there? 2010, I think.
10.
Yes, 2010. And we'd gotten tickets to 2 games, and a friend of mine who lives in Oakland got us tickets for the 3rd game. Now, one of the problems with San Francisco, it is the biggest attendance percentage in the country. They have about a 98% attendance, so getting tickets is at a premium. We, of course, get our tickets as soon as the season opens, but my friends just sort of all get tickets a week before the game. We ended up getting seats in the top row in the left field stands. And when we first saw the tickets, I was very disappointed, so we're never going to see the game from here. That day, David Ortiz hit the first American League splashdown. And we were in a direct line to see him hit the ball, go over the stands, come down in the water, and be picked up by a kayaker, which you couldn't see in any other seat in the park. And even on TV, they have to pick it up with different cameras. And what a thrill that was! It was just, it made the whole trip just to see a splashdown by the first American leaguer that ever did that. The BART, that's the Bay Area Transit, stops directly at the park. AT&T is somewhat south of San Francisco proper, but it's a stop right there, so you don't need to try to take a car over. There's plenty of parking there. But you can take a T from any stop and get right there and picked up again. There's no travel problems. There's lots of kids things to do. You can take a complete circle trip along the promenade around the whole park, which a lot of parks you can't do. They're interfered by the private seats or concession stands, which is great. And I'm not even going to bother to talk about the things to do in San Francisco. To me, it's the most exciting city in the country. And that's the one drawback. It's also the most expensive. So when we went down, we actually stayed in Oakland and then just took BART all the way down because the...
Yeah, but don't stay in Oakland.
if you're trying to, I mean, there are places to stay in San Francisco, but they are pricey. Best thing to do is have some friends you can sort of bunk with. But that would be my first choice.
So we're going to take a little detour from some of the positive experiences of going to parks and give you, well, some heads up on some places that you might not want to put at the top of your list to go to. You know, as with anything, there's the good and the bad, and I'm sure you can make your own way and make your good experience out of any park you attend, but these are just sort of some of the ones that, and it's really no surprise what these picks are going to be, because they're pretty well known around baseball as the toughest parks to try to have a good time. But we're going to explore those just a little bit for you here, just to give you a little taste of what it might be to go there. And mine actually, unless you're attending a Dolphins game, you're not going to go there for baseball anymore. My pick was Pro Player Stadium. It was called Joe Robbie. It's now called Sun Life. And for about 15 years, the Marlins and the Dolphins shared the facility. And it was probably a very nice football stadium. It is not a venue for baseball at all. The way the seats are, they're designed for a football stadium, and they would convert the seats to a baseball field, and about 2/3 of them would end up facing the wrong way. Most of them, you'd end up looking at the center fielder.
Of course.
And I don't mean from the bleachers, I mean from the first base and third base.
Of course, in Fenway, the right field stands.
Well, yeah. If you're sitting in section 5,
if you like to watch the bullpens.
yeah. So take section 5 of Fenway. That's what most of Pro Player Stadium was. Looking at the center fielder rather than the bullpen. So I mean, and they were just in Miami this weekend, and I know some of the people are sort of mixed on the new park reviews of what the new Miami Stadium is. It cannot be worse than what Pro Player was. Trust me. Anything is an improvement on that place. Not to mention the Marlins were black and teal at the time, and the colors were orange and green like the Dolphins. So it didn't match the team at all. So you can't go to that one anymore for baseball, but that's just an aside of the worst experience I ever had at a park.
And they had cheerleaders.
And they had cheerleaders,
Oh.
yes. They had cheerleaders.
Literally, they moved from section to section
Yes.
and do cheers.
And
Yeah.
block your view.
And block your
Make
view.
no sense in baseball, because the plays don't last long enough to cheer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I happened to go during a playoff game, which trying to get tickets for that, I sat out in the fish tank, which meant it was the last row in the upper deck, and you basically looked at the left fielder the whole game. But it was a playoff game, so I mean that kind of made up for it.
Look at the scoreboard.
And yeah, look at the scoreboard, and there were only 2 playoff series ever in that park, and I was at one of them, so that sort of negated the negatives. But
Moving up the coast a little bit.
Yeah, we're just going to go a little further up into Florida for my choice for the worst stadium in baseball, Tropicana Field in St. Petersburg, Florida, the Trop. And it's actually so bad that it used to have a capacity for baseball of 41,000, and it's now the smallest capacity in the MLB because it's now it's down to 31,000, and what they did was put tarps over all the seats that were not selling out. So now it has, yeah, exactly. It was built in 1998, so you would think that it would be a very cool park, but it's not. But it's been the park of the Devil Rays and now the Rays since their inception in 1998. It's got a domed ceiling with a series of catwalks called rings. They're A, B, C, and D rings, and depending on where the ball hits, you either have a home run, you're out, or you just want to leave forever. It's been some really horrible calls there, and players have been very upset.
Smashed a bulb once.
Yeah, and it crashed down on the field, and they had to vacate the field and clean up the light bulb chips. It's pretty much of a horror. It's the only non-retractable dome in Major League Baseball. Couple of good things about it. There is a Ted Williams Hitters Hall of Fame there, and the reason I said, why is Ted Williams here? Well, Ted Williams lived in Florida in his later life, so he actually contributed to this Hitters Museum, and that's kind of cool. And the other good thing about it is there is a lot of parking, and it's very cheap. You can park right at the park.
Right.
For $10, probably because nobody wants to go there. But no, I didn't say that. And now that I gave you the good stuff, here's the bad stuff. It is the loudest park. It is ear-shattering. They have cowbells in this domed stadium that just ring constantly. And they have really loud ads on all these big screen TVs all over the place. Hogan was screaming when we were there. I don't know what he was screaming about. It blocked my ears. And
They run these cowbells all the
Yeah,
time,
it's a ding, ding,
not
ding.
just for a rally or
No,
anything.
no,
Who's up or
constant.
during the, just they ring cowbells all the time.
And again, we have another blasphemy here. There are cheerleaders here. I don't know what it is about Florida, but cheerleaders do not belong in baseball. I'm sorry. And then it's also dim. The way they built the dome, the lighting is bad. It's very dim even on the field, and you might, if you've watched games there, you might see the players just look up and go, I don't know where it
They
is.
lose the ball.
And it's going to hit a ring in a minute.
Yeah.
And the bullpens are on the field, which is difficult. And there have actually been some injuries, I believe, because they can't possibly watch the game and do their warm-ups when they're out in the bullpens. But here's the biggest problem. Raymond is their mascot, and he is the most obnoxious mascot in baseball. He actually ran over Coco Crisp.
That's
He
right.
knocked Jerry down. He's just horrible, and if you've ever listened to Jerry talk about Raymond, you'll know that that's the truth. There is one good thing. They're the 5th lowest ticket prices, not surprising, in MLB. Now, what I was going to recommend about going there is the fact that you would be in St. Petersburg, which is the Sunshine City. They have approximately 361 sunshiny days a year. I don't know why they built a dome.
Rains.
And actually, they had a Guinness Book of World Records, 768 consecutive days of sunshine. So that's a good thing. Although when we went for opening day in 2003, it was 30 degrees. And try trying to find a sweatshirt in St. Petersburg in April. Everything's bikinis. We froze our butts off. But anyway, the one thing that I was going to recommend to go to St. Petersburg is what's called the Pier. It's this wonderful building that juts half a mile out into the bay, but it's closed until 2017 for reservations. So if you're going to go see the Rays, go after 2017. They do have a couple of other really nice attractions there. They have the Salvador Dali Museum,
That's
which
great.
is very, very
That's great.
cool.
Yeah.
They have sunken gardens there that are wonderful, that you can just walk around all day and just be surrounded by sunshiny beauty. They also have a fabulous Holocaust museum. It's really breathtaking there. And if you want, you can take a cruise to see the homes of the rich and famous. But overall, I would say put this at the bottom of your list, at least till 2017.
I've always thought that park looks like they forgot to put the bullpens in. And then after it was built, said, oh, we need to put bullpens in, let's just put them here.
Yeah, not a great experience.
So it sounds like if you're planning to go to Florida, just go swimming.
Yeah.
You don't do baseball.
No, in fairness though, there are no 3 or 4 generation Rays or Marlins fans.
Sure, yeah.
And the people that live in Florida, for the most part, are transplants from the New England area, the
Sure.
Midwest. So when there are games there,
when we were there, far more Red Sox fans, and I know the Yankee fans outnumber the Rays fans. And it's kind of tough to have a team where you essentially are visiting in your own park.
Yeah. The big draw is the spring training games.
That's right.
Because all the teams have spring training, or
That's
half
right.
of them do,
That's right.
and a lot of transplants are fans of whatever team has spring training facilities
So
there.
people that come there, the Florida from, if they're from Detroit or they're from Cleveland or wherever, they'll come there. But it does have and it also has the second lowest attendance average of all the parks too in Tampa Bay. So I doubt that Tampa Bay will be in Tampa Bay much longer.
Yeah, they're talking about Las Vegas.
Yeah.
For Las Vegas, or maybe
For all
back-
you gamblers.
or back to Montreal as a possibility.
That would be nice.
But my least favorite park was, it's now called OCO, which stands for the Alameda County Coliseum in Oakland. It's the only football, baseball stadium remaining in the country. It's got a 35,000 capacity for baseball. And the two things about it that are the most difficult, it has the most foul territory of any park in the country by a lot.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
There's acres on each side, so it's a great pitcher's ballpark, but it's not a good fan ballpark because you're so far away from the action. Even if you're in the front row, you're yards and yards away. And another weird thing about it is the front area is raised quite a bit up above the ground, if you've ever been to Pawtucket like it is there. So the first row, you're up probably, you can't reach down and catch a ball, or it's a strange setup to do that. I guess it's the center and left field, has a huge number of seats. They now refer to as Mount Davis, because Al Davis built that essentially as a football stadium. And they just tarp over this entire area. And what that does is it blocks the view of the Oakland surrounding landscape. Now, most ballparks reasonably open up the center field area so you can see the city behind it. Seattle has an extraordinary view of downtown Seattle. Fenway does. And so as you're sitting in the park, you get a view. In St. Louis, you can see the arch. I try to make the park emphasize the city itself, but the city is just sealed off by this place. There's also no way to walk around the outside of it. There's nothing. Most of the parks have nice in Pittsburgh, as she mentioned. You walk along the riverside with all the statues of the famous players are. Beautiful place to be. The entrance, there is a subway stop right there, but the entrance is an enclosed area covered by barbed wire. There's no scenic places to even shoot. We weren't able to take any pictures of the park especially. There's no place to do that. Another thing that's cropped up, an interesting feature of the park, is that they dug it down into the ground, 21 feet below ground surface, ground level. So you walk into the top seats and walk down into the park. But since that bottom tier is 3 feet below sea level, there's sewage problems there. And 2 or 3 times, the visitors' dugouts, visitors' training rooms, a lot of the press areas down there, sewage is bubbled up, so they have to move everybody over to the other rooms. It's just a pretty nasty place.
And it's pretty old too. It's been there for quite a while. It's one of the oldest parks. Yeah.
And Oakland per se, I hate to knock any place, but Oakland is a city of 400,000 people. It's one of the highest crime rates in the city. There are very few attractions there to see other than Jack London Square, which is pretty nice.
Yeah.
And I just want to end this with a kind of unforgiving quote from Gertrude Stein, who grew up there as a child. She said about Oakland, "There is no there."
Yeah.
The only thing I get to say about Oakland is a great place to stay and go to San Francisco. So let's get back to the park.
Yeah, let's get back to the good stuff here. So these are our favorite parks, and these are the ones that if you're going to make a trip anywhere, make these your top priority, and no matter what the expense, to make because it's a once in a lifetime chance that you might get to do some of these. My favorite park, and it's probably pretty obvious, is Oriole Park at Camden Yards in Baltimore, which has been called Fenway South because of all the Red Sox fans that have gone there. And the last couple of years they've improved, but they had a very long 15-year stretch where the team was terrible from the mid-90s into about 2010. And you could walk up to the gate and get a ticket. And in fact, we went there in I think 2008 or 9, and it was more than half Red Sox fans. The Red Sox fans outnumbered the Orioles fans. It was amazing how many were there. And they just sort of take over the city for the weekend. It's actually kind of fun. You see all kinds of Red Sox jerseys all over the place.
That may be turning around soon.
Yeah, because Baltimore's good again.
Yeah.
So now that, well, when it first opened in the early 90s, you couldn't get a ticket there.
Right.
And then when the teams didn't do as well heading into the 2000s, that's when it became a real easy ticket to get to. It's fairly big. It's 45,000 seats. It opened in 1992, and what was really important about it, why it's maybe the most important park other than Fenway and Wrigley right now, is it was the first retro-built park. They call it a retro park. All through the 60s and 70s and even into the 80s, there were places like Three Rivers and Riverfront, Astrodome. They were built to be multi-purpose stadiums. So they were AstroTurf, they were designed for football and baseball. They had these huge seating capacities where half the seats were nosebleed seats, a lot of them were domes.
And they were cookie cutter parks.
Yeah, they all looked the same.
Similar,
They all looked the
same
Round.
outfield dimensions, round.
You could
parks.
walk into a couple of those, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati,
Couldn't tell which park you're in.
and you couldn't tell which park you're in. They were designed by the same company. They were just anything. They all looked the same. And so this one brought back the idea of an old style ballpark like Fenway or Wrigley. And they were sort of inspired by the old style ballparks. And what they did is they took this area called Utah Street, and which housed the B&O warehouse, which had been abandoned for 20 years. It was probably the worst part of Baltimore at the time. It was just, it was the middle of a slum. The factories were vacant. It was absolutely just the worst part you could go. And they put this ballpark right in the worst part to revitalize the area. And boy, did it work. Utah Street is beautiful now. Utah Street's only open to pedestrian traffic, and it runs between the park and the warehouse, which is now all the Baltimore team offices are right in the warehouse now. And so that whole area of Baltimore has now been revitalized by this park.
And Boston copied that exactly when
Yes.
they revitalized the Scully Square.
The Yawkey Way area.
That whole area was all
Yeah.
rebuilt to the waterfront, copying Baltimore.
Yeah, and there are many hotels in the area, tons of bars, restaurants, and it's not just a great park. It's a great area of the city, which I'm going to get to in a second. But there are just so many cool features of the park. One of the features is if you walk down Utah Street, there are little plaques all along the sidewalk where players have hit home runs, and they'll have a little plaque like David Ortiz hit this homer 428 feet, and it's on the sidewalk that you're walking over. It was the warehouse was hit once by Ken Griffey during the home run contest at the All-Star game. It's never been hit during a game. It's about 500 feet.
Yeah.
It'd be a shot to hit it. So it's never happened during a game, but there is a little plaque on the warehouse that says Ken Griffey hit here. And they have the gift shops and everything in the warehouse. It's really a great area. Hideo Nomo, on a historical fact, pitched the first no-hitter ever there when he was with the Red Sox, which is very cool. I think it's still the only no-hitter there, actually. I think it is. There are two orange seats. Actually, one's red and one's orange. One of them commemorates Eddie Murray's 500th homer, and the other one commemorates Cal Ripken's 278th homer, I think it is, which broke the record for a shortstop. It was the most ever by a shortstop at the time. So like the red Ted Williams seat, you can go and sit in the seats, take a picture or whatever. And there are a couple other really, really nice features to it. One of them is there's an usher, I don't know his name, but he's actually a featured person. He runs up and down the stairs and double fists pouring your beer, and they put him up on the stadium, and he sprints the entire time he's in the park. He sprints up and down the stairs. And it's a great atmosphere. There's not a bad seat in the house. The sight lines are great. And you're not quite as close as Fenway, but you're pretty close to the park. And it's just a great area to walk around. Utah Street's open to the public even when the games aren't happening. They have Boog's Barbecue Pit. Boog Powell has his own barbecue place out there. And I took a picture with Boog when we visited there one time. Very, very accommodating. Sign stuff, hangs out, shoots the breeze with you while you're hanging out at the park. And again, a great ballpark tour too. There are all these little nooks and crannies in the park that they'll bring you to. A couple things to be aware of there. It always rains. So be prepared.
Always.
Oh, the heat and humidity in Baltimore in the summer is brutal. So just be prepared that you may have some rain delays if you're going to be there for a series. Guaranteed one of the 3 games will be pushed back a little bit.
We had a hotel
Yeah.
that faced the
Yes,
park,
right.
and we sat and looked out our window at the park to see when the game was going to start.
As soon as they took off the tarp, then
We
we
were
walked
there,
over.
yeah. And again, about the whole area being revitalized, that this was a terrible part of the city. And the whole area from the park down to the waterfront is now just this bustling touristy area. Right across the street from the stadium is the Babe Ruth Museum. He was born in Baltimore. His father actually had a tavern that is where Camden Yards is now. And it's great. It's all about him, and they have stuff from pictures when he was young. They actually have a wall in there that commemorates every home run he hit in his career. Off the date, the picture he hit it off of. Very cool. You could spend a whole day there. It's really interesting. They also have the Sports Legend Museum, which is attached to the park too, and it's all the history of all of Maryland sports. So it's pro, college. They have a lot of stuff from the Colts there, because the Colts are not there anymore. And that's a great sports thing too. But there are other things outside of sports that are terrific. The aquarium there is outstanding. If you're staying near the park, the waterfront is about a 5-minute walk from the park, and the waterfront's beautiful. It's these huge shopping areas. The aquarium is right on the water, and it's not just an aquarium. They have a rainforest exhibit. It's a great family thing, and again, you can spend a whole day there. There's also Fort McHenry, where Baltimore is located right on the bay. It was a great naval place. It was very advantageous to have that as a naval center, because you could take the bay and get into the mainland from there. So Fort McHenry became a very important military base. And you can take a ferry out to Fort McHenry, and you can go in all the tunnels, and you can go, and they still have stuff from when the colonial troops were there, and all through the years they have all the history of the military.
There was a famous
equipment.
song written about that.
Oh yeah, that's right. Maybe the Star Spangled Banner was
That's
written
right,
about
that's
that. That's right.
That's right.
He wrote it at Fort McHenry.
When we took the water
Yeah.
ferry up there, a squall came up,
Yeah.
and we had to make an emergency stop, and I lost Louis the First, my first cap, right in Chesapeake Bay.
He had it signed by Louis Tian. It was Louis the First, and it went into the
we went into
Chesapeake
the
Bay.
bay.
Yes. And one really cool thing that we would recommend, it's a little out of the way, but it's so fascinating, is called the Phoenix Shot Tower. And it's about how they made bullets before the days of mass production. Bullets, cannons, artillery. And what they did was that they took and melted the silver or whatever they were making the weapons with,
The lead.
the lead, and they would drop it from the top of the tower. And in the course of falling, it would cool, and by the time it landed, there was your artillery shell
And
made
in
of
cold
lead.
water.
Yeah.
Good.
And that's real. It's a little out of the way. It's walking distance, but it's a good hike.
It's neat.
And it's so fascinating. Again, that's not a real touristy place that you might not see in the tourist books, but that's a fascinating place. But if you're going to the park and the waterfront area, there's a Hard Rock Cafe. There's Edgar Allan Poe's gravestone. There's just in that 20 minutes of walking area, you could spend a whole week there and
That's right.
and still
That's great.
it's still not have time to hit everything there. It's a wonderful area.
Well, I guess I'm up. I would like to talk about my favorite, Kauffman Stadium, the K in Kansas City. We went there both in 2001 and for opening day in 2007.
This is a great example of a place you would never go to Kansas City unless you're going to the ballpark, and then you are.
Well, so we're going to tell you
Did I
something.
steal your thunder?
Yes, you absolutely did. That was my next note to say. Anyway, Kauffman was built in 1973. For those of you that are still pondering the trivia, it's the 6th oldest park, so don't get excited.
Yeah.
Its capacity is close to 38,000. And the nice part about it is it's adjacent to Arrowhead Stadium, where the Kansas City Chiefs play. And it's called the Truman Sports Complex. So there's massive cheap parking, because between the two parks, there's just a huge parking area. So it's really easy to do that. There's a waterfall display inside the park. It's the largest privately funded fountain in the world. And it's absolutely beautiful. If you ever watch the games, those fountains are magnificent. They did some major renovations between 2007 and 2009. We've not seen those renovations, but we don't think they really needed them, so that's just a plus. And a cool thing about the park too is that there's the Buck O'Neill seat. Buck O'Neill was in the Negro leagues, and he used to hang out in Kansas City all the time before he passed. And it's a red seat, and what they do is every game they pick somebody who they think embodies the spirit of Buck O'Neill, so it's really a big deal to sit in that seat.
If you saw Ken Burns' baseball, you would know instantly who Buck O'Neill is. He absolutely stole the series. Just this wonderful, kind-hearted man. Just a wonderful person.
Great ambassador for baseball. And if you go on a Friday night, you get a free fireworks display, and it's fabulous.
Right.
And here is a good fact for Kansas City too. Their best seats are the cheapest, best seats in MLB, and their regular tickets are just slightly above the average in the majors. So it's a good buy. You do need a car because the stadiums are quite a ways, I think maybe 10 miles out of the city. But the great thing about that is that there are hotels all around the outskirts, so you can literally stay and walk across a field to get to the game. So the accessibility is great if you don't mind renting a car. And as I mentioned, in 2007 we went to the opening day game, and that was when Matsuzaka was first starting with the Red Sox. And so it was a sea of reporters from Japan who spotted me. I had little Red Sox sneakers on. They said, "Oh, you big Red Sox fan, you diehard fan?" I said, "Absolutely." So they followed us around the park, and they actually came up here and filmed us watching a Red Sox game when Matsuzaka was pitching. So that was quite an experience. Kansas City itself, as Pete mentioned, who would ever think to go to Kansas City? We sure didn't. We didn't think it was going to be the highlight of America. But it has a population of almost 500,000, and it's the city of fountains. There are over 200 fountains just in Kansas City. It's the second most in the world, second to Rome. It's the sister city to Sevilla, Spain, and so it has a real Moorish influence. There's a place called Country Club Square that is all mosaics and tiles, and you'll see a Talbots, and it's beautiful tiles and mosaics, and then it says little tiny Talbots. Beautiful place to visit. It's also the world center for the Hallmark card industry, the home stadium for the U.S. men's national soccer team, and it's famous for steak and barbecue. So if you're a meat person, go there and just eat the meat. It is unbelievable. There's also an Arabia steamship exhibit where there was a steamship that ran aground when the Mississippi River changed course, and they managed to dig it up, and it was pristine. They had to preserve it, all the materials that were on there with airtight containers, but it's all of the things from pioneer days when the steamships would bring up linens and chinas and all kinds of cool things to the settlers. So that's really interesting too. But the best part is right next to each other are the Negro Leagues Hall of Fame and the Jazz Hall of Fame.
The same building.
Same building, one on one side, one on the other side. It's on the corner of 18th and Vine, and it's just an outstanding exhibit. You'll see Buck O'Neill is a huge part of that, and then Jazz Museum, you can go in and make your own jazz and learn all about the history of American jazz. So those are two bonuses we had no idea about. And since you have to rent a car to go to the game, you can take a short trip to Independence to see the Harry Truman Presidential Library, which is unbelievable. It's absolutely fabulous.
And if you're our age, it's particularly good because it's set up the way life was between 1945 and 1953. So all the appliances and the TVs, the ads are all from that era. And we remembered them.
Yes, we did. So go to Kansas City. It's a great place.
Well, I guess I'll conclude here. When we've told people that we've been to every single park when the Red Sox were playing, all 31, I think, total now, they say, which is your favorite? And I usually surprise them by saying, my favorite is Texas. their immediate reaction is, oh, hot, hot, Texas hot. Well, the park is called, now it's called Globe Life Park. It used to be called The Ballpark. It's in Arlington, Texas, right in between Dallas and Fort Worth, which is interesting in itself. It sits up on a hill like a fortress. Most ballparks are in urban settings. You don't really see them ahead of time. But this is almost like the way I used to picture the Alamo. And it's up on this hill, and to get there, you can drive nearby, and then you walk through grass or probably little league parks to get up there. And what I like especially about both Kansas City and Texas is that the hotels are right adjacent to the park. So you don't need to take cabs or buses to get to the park. You can just hike up the hill. Your feet will burn, but you can hike up the hill. And there are only a couple big hotels there, and both times we were there, we stayed with the ball club. Deb had a long discussion with Tim Wakefield one day. He was carrying his guitar around so they wouldn't wreck it on the bus. But just the layout of the place is very picturesque and rural, even though there are 400,000 people in Arlington.
And we took an elevator ride with Don and Jerry.
That's right. That's right. We met Don and Jerry down in the bar. They were astonished that people would go all the way to Texas to see a ball game with the Red Sox. That was before Red Sox Nation was full blown, and he wasn't the president of Red Sox Nation.
That's right.
Another thing about it is that it has very few day games. So because it's in a desert area, it's hot during the day, but it cools out pretty rapidly at night. And in the right field stands, there's a long, I want to call it lounge, rec area, bar, restaurant that runs the whole length of the top of the right field stands. And you can go up there to eat or shoot pool and watch batting practice and fielding practice outside until the game starts. And when the game starts at 7:15, it's cooled off enough so it's very, very comfortable there. It also is a retro park. They copied 6 different styles of ballparks. And the one I like best is called Greens Hill, a dead center. You must have seen this on TV. Just open grassy slope. And anytime anyone hits a home run out there, you see people leaping out of the stands and running down there. They used to have a big T mowed into the grass, but they took that out since. The only criticism that I have, or that I don't really have, but most people have of the park, is that there is no roof. Because it's hot there. It doesn't rain. I don't know of many rainouts there, but it is hot. And there also, unfortunately, have been 3 very serious falls from the stands there, including one a very few years ago. They got terrible notoriety when Josh Hamilton tossed a ball to a fellow sitting in the left field stands. He leaned over to catch it and fell and died from that. And there currently is a statue of the fellow and his son in his memory, and they've changed the height of a lot of the restraining gates since then. My only criticism, and it isn't really a criticism, it's somewhat a little timidity, they have the biggest grasshoppers that fly in there you've ever seen in your life. It looks like UFOs are sitting up in the stands, and this creature comes and lands on it. And they are big darn grasshoppers, I'll tell you. It is located almost exactly between Dallas and Fort Worth. And we took a trip to each place. The big attraction, at least for us, because we're from Massachusetts, was to see Dealey Plaza. And when you drive to Dealey Plaza, you folks that are old enough to remember that terrible occurrence in 1963, it hasn't changed one iota. You know you're there when you get there. And so you can go up to the Texas Book Depository, which is now a museum. They call it the 6th floor museum. And see there's a long guided tour of the entire series of events. You can walk up and take pictures behind the grassy knoll, which made us doubters about the Warren Commission's report immediately. But in addition to that, there's one of the most incredible arboretums on the other side of the city. That itself is a worthwhile trip. And as a contrast between the 1,200,000 people that live in Dallas, go the other direction to Fort Worth. They have the world's largest rodeo, indoor rodeo there. And it's like going right back to the old stockyards. Deb rode well, she didn't ride. She sat on a longhorn steer.
Named Shiloh.
And Shiloh, she sat on it. It's hard to
So
get.
don't touch his horns.
But it's real, it's almost an old west flavor, so you go from the modern Texas to the old Texas just with a short trip. We took a cab ride, but if you had a car, it was a very easy trip to do. And also, the original Six Flags is there, so it's a great place for the kids to go as well. Just curiosity, do they call them Five Flags now? They've done away with the Confederate flag?
I don't know.
Maybe they have.
Maybe it's 5 flags across the
Five
country now.
flags
I don't
in the
know.
country, I don't know. But it is, I think, a wonderful ballpark. I don't express, a lot of Red Sox Nation heads down that way, but if you do, you won't be disappointed, I guarantee you. So that brings us to the end of our ballpark talks. And we certainly hope that you've had your interest piqued. Traveling to see the Sox in other parks is a great experience. And generally speaking, fans loved to see us there. They all
Yes.
praised Fenway, they all wanted to come, they wanted to know all about it. And they were very pleased that we came to see their parks. Maybe in the 31 parks, maybe 2 or 3 somewhat negative experiences, but
The
not
Yankee Stadium, of course.
Well, I should have said this. We didn't include Fenway and Yankee Stadium in this talk, because of course in Fenway we're prejudiced,
Right.
and in Yankee Stadium
We're
prejudiced.
prejudiced.
But the funny thing is if you've been to Fenway lately, a lot of other places are doing the reverse.
That's right.
Every weekend where there's a team coming into town, you'll go through the subway and you'll see Royals jerseys and Orioles jerseys and Angels jerseys, and we even saw Rockies jerseys a few
Yeah.
times.
That's right.
So a lot of fans from other places, I imagine they'd have to do it through a tour company, because
Yeah.
trying to get tickets for Fenway must be really difficult. But they're all making the trip here, just like we are to the
Just
other
last
parks.
year we were sitting, the fans 2 rows in front of us from Tampa Bay. They came up
Yeah.
to see the Rays play in Tampa Bay.
Because it's a better place to see baseball.
Yeah, right.
But they were very excited, and I warned them to be careful because the balls come off, foul balls come off the bats pretty quickly, and no sooner had I said that, one came right at my chest, and I dove to the ground, and Deb grabbed the ball. And folks in front of us said, geez, thanks for telling us.
Oh, so before we go, the answer to the trivia
Trivia.
questions of the day. The oldest ballpark after Fenway and Wrigley, obviously, is Dodger Stadium. It was built in 61. 65.
They
Yeah.
formerly had
Yeah.
played in Los Angeles Coliseum, which was a total disaster.
Right.
But they moved to in
Dodger Stadium.
65, and it's still in very good shape, very beautiful place.
Yeah.
The one problem with that is getting out.
Get it?
We sat in a cab for 1 hour in the parking lot before we could get out to the freeway. And unless you're from California, driving out in that freeway is
And
dangerous.
you can't take a bus because it's 4 transfers, they told us, and
Yeah.
2 of them we didn't want to transfer. So,
And likewise, the biggest seating capacity for pure baseball, Dodger Stadium. So I hope you picked the same park for both of them, because you were right.
56,000. It's the only park with more than 50,000 still. So that's our trivia for the day, and I hope you'll stay tuned for next time for episode 9, which we haven't determined it's going to be. So, thanks, family.
Thanks, everybody, and
We'll see you all at the ballpark.
See you at the park.
Either home or away.
Yes.
Take care.